Welcome to my first episode of the BotPod in our Tech Talk series, where I'm being joined by expert guests in the robotic space. Today, I'm being joined by Noé, who is the CEO and co-founder of Alsanor, an early-stage humanoid robotics startup. And today, we'll be exploring the early-stage journey, various challenges of hardware development that we all know, and preparing demos to secure funding. And of course, maybe most excitingly for me, to hear more about No's vision for transforming hospitality operations. So without further ado, No, please give me a bit of intro and background on yourself and how we came about chatting today.
Sure. So thanks for having me in this marvelous podcast, and this will be quite exciting. So I'm Noé, indeed, CEO of Alsanor, and my personal background is I grew up in Africa actually for 9 years, and then go to live in France. And in Paris, I made Alsanor, which I will talk about later in details. And I have a background in engineering, computer engineering, AI, data science, and then for the past year, of course, in robotics, because that is what we are doing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, my burning question, and I'm sure what so many people would love to hear more about, is your early vision. So, how did Alsanor get started? What's the mission behind bringing humanoid robots to hotels?
Absolutely. So we made Alsanor a year ago, so in August 2024, that's the legal opening of the company. The reason why we opened it is that we wanted to help, in general, mankind, of course, big vision, all that, with something of our own. And the previous company we've done with my two co-founders, best friends as well, was a company very service-oriented, 3D visualization, not something very exciting, but this was during our studies. And after that, we had a bit of experience in the field, and we wanted to do something more. We were noticing by our AI experience and information that humanoid robots were coming out of the fiction books to get actually feasible in a technical point of view, mostly because of AI. So this big thing that is everyone knows nowadays, the ChatGPT, LLMs, etc., that made humanoid robot possible. And this was a dream we had for close to a decade now, making these humanoid robots. We wanted these to help humans with the very repetitive, annoying, difficult tasks that can endanger your health and that are very annoying to do, that no one's want to do. And of course, if we can participate by having these robots do this for us, all the better. So that's a bit of the story. And of course, I can add data to this because for the hotel specifically, why the hotel specifically? There's also big reasons for that. One of them is that in France, for example, there are 200,000 jobs to even 300,000, depending on the estimates, that are not unfilled in the hospitality industry, so from hotels to restaurants. And this is very big. And of course, the aging population is another big problem with these kind of jobs, not limited to hospitality, many kind of jobs, of course, because less people to work, less people information studying to specific works like this. For example, we had from 100,000 students in France in hospitality a decade ago, and now we are down to around 12,000, according to some studies. So less people to do the work, less people that will soon be not ready to do this work, which is heading to a downfall if we don't do anything. If we don't automate, many things, many companies will go bankrupt. They won't be able to sustain their own operation anymore. So we need something that's non-negotiable. And the robots and human robots, I think, are the perfect way to do that because they meet specific criterion of hotels that are very important, such as the space it takes. One robot can do anything, most things, when it comes to housekeeping, without taking too much space. That's one of the big reasons. If you have one robot for each task, you will soon end up with many robots, and that won't be feasible. So, and also this can be adapted to other verticals later on, because our goal with that is to go from hospitality to the homes and also retirement homes to help people retain their autonomy at home and, of course, take care of the bulk of the, of course, everyday tasks that take a lot of the yearly free time we should have. So more people to get more free things, that's better.
Okay, now I love that. I love that you kind of took that, data of labor shortage and aging population, I guess specifically in France. And then so you kind of
Mhm.
started thinking predominantly about a hospitality industry as your point to entry, I guess. And then from that looking into care homes, people's homes, and then kind of expanding that. So was your
Exactly.
inspiration of focus mainly just on that data of like labor shortage and aging population more than just like, I don't know, this could be fun to do, right?
Yeah, that's mostly from a social point of view. We want to do something that matters, and they have to be realistic. Robots for fun don't really work. You have to design them for the purpose you have in mind. Here we can summarize it by housekeeping. This is the big word because they
Mm,
all these verticals I mentioned are very housekeeping focused, or they
okay,
need this kind of job.
interesting. Love that. And I guess talk to me a bit about kind of the evolution then of this being an idea with data to you guys actually conceptualizing this into a concrete plan and, you know, becoming an organization as of last year. Like, tell me a bit about that journey for you.
Sure. So in 2024, first of all, there were a lot less humanoid robot companies around. There were imagining robots that was adapted for many different verticals at once was a bit more the thing. Then we had new companies coming around, and specialization in specific verticals occurred for many companies, which was more realistic. And because in the beginning, you must have a foothold, and of course, you will have competitors, a lot of them, especially in China and the United States, which are the two big areas of humanoid robots right now. Europe is a bit behind. That's also where we come in, not alone, but a bit alone still. So the thing is, in early 2025, we got into an accelerator, which was Startup Bootcamp. They are quite a big accelerator in Europe, and they provide a 3 months program with a lot of teaching, mentorship, etc. And that's where we actually started to explore verticals in a more serious way than just a generalistic approach, which told us that we discovered that hotels were very much in need of such a solution and that it was still a very underserved market in terms of humanoid robots. Very few companies wanted to start with that. Many of them wanted to do car manufacturing or just pulling the usual backflip stunts that we usually see in China. And many of these other robots were also very small and not necessarily adapted to hotel environments when you have to reach for things that can be high, like the shower glass, for example, for many reasons. So we found our robots to be quite adapted in concept on paper to this vertical. We did interviews with hotels, thanks to our mentors opening their networks. And we confirmed that with 2 LOIs and 85% of the hotel managers saying they were interested, that's when we really decided to focus on hospitality first, and for also many other reasons, which I may mention later on if we have time. But to stop myself from rambling too much.
No, I find it so interesting. I love that you kind of thought about it as a wider piece. You kind of got, I guess, hotels almost interested before you started building to make that sell later down the line easier, being like, hey, we've already spoken about this. So here's the product in reality of what we spoke about a year and a half ago. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. And I mean, I guess for me or for so many people, there are so many questions when you're working in unstructured environments, right? So for you, like what are those biggest challenges in designing robots that can like operate reliably in a hotel environment that's quite like unstructured, heavy traffic, quite and you can't not structured quite an unreliable environment where you don't know where people are going to be or dropping or spilling things or towels on the floor, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's one of also the big advantage of hotels, that the environments are still standardized to some extent. So you can have a layout of a room. Most rooms are kind of the same in a hotel, and it's much easier than homes for starters. It's also less strict than hospitals, because in hospitals it is the highest, I guess, regulated environment. So hotels are a bit of a middle ground, but you have to keep in mind many things. So safety is one of the biggest challenge, hardware, and autonomy. That's the three big things. So for the safety side, your robots must be able to detect humans around all the time. 100% of the time, you cannot fail at that. If your robot collides with someone, that's bad. That's a lawsuit. So you have to be careful of that. So you have to use proximity sensors, etc. We'll talk it more in details later. And of course, on the hardware side, your robots must be limited in speed. So each movement must never exceed X speed at the fingertip, for example, or the wrist, because of course, even if you don't see a human from the robot's perspective, nothing tells you someone won't come out of a room suddenly or from a corner and collide with your robot. You have to consider humans are everywhere when you move around. So of course, the robot must be able to avoid humans on its path. It must be able to communicate with humans as well from time to time. Not always. That can be something that is very important early stage, but since it's housekeeping robots, first and foremost, in the beginning, it's mostly have to respect the intended planning the hotel manager wants it to do. And lastly, yeah, that's about the autonomy of the robot. So have to move around, recognize its environments, and navigate inside, know where it is in the environment, which is SLAM in robotics, so simultaneous localization in an environment. And of course, yeah, the task scheduling, physical interactions, social interactions. That's the big challenges. A bit of a mix here, but yeah.
Okay. And I guess with that, we've spoken previously about it being, a wheeled robot, two hands for those housekeeping purposes. So fingers, high level of dexterity to perform these tasks that humans can perform just as reliably and ideally at the same or an increased speed that we have human housekeepers doing it. So tell me a bit more about like how you integrated like sensors and hardware to, I guess, handle dynamic spaces, handle these guest interactions with this kind of SLAM piece. And yeah, I guess mix SLAM and dexterity with both of these for how you did this integration of sensors and what challenges you found, I guess, with it as well.
Sure. So first of all, there's many types of sensors in a human robot. You have the torque sensors, which is, in a technical term, they are the sensors that can give the robot's proprioception to some extent, or most importantly, how much pressure is exerted on specific joints, how heavy something it is lifting is. And this has many implications and many uses because, yeah, that's a big part of the robot's proprioception. Of course, the proximity sensors as well, you have to have, can be LiDAR, can be other things to avoid collisions with anything. There are concepts or artificial skins that are planned for robots that also we plan to use at some point because they will allow robots to detect everything around them, around the quote skin, which is very important because if you have any space in your vision that you cannot see or dead angles, you have to have a backup with that. If there's a toddler on the ground or anywhere and the robot is not really seeing it, etc., every inch of its body should be able to stop before it collides with anything. So that's for the big proprioception thing. Another thing is, of course, the microphone. That's very basic, but microphone, of course, you can have multiple ones to isolate the origin of sounds. This can be interesting because when people talk to you, the robot must be able to turn around in the right direction. Even that's a little thing, but can be overlooked. You have, of course, stereo cameras, because cameras, when you put two of them together, like eyes, you can infer the depths of objects quite easily. There are a lot of open source projects that do just that, and robots like to have this kind of data at hand. And of course, the big thing for the robot, aside from, of course, the actuators, is the computing board, because the robots must be able to have this big AI on board to be able to talk with people, to be able to interact with some environments. And we are currently thinking of using NVIDIA's Jetson boards, which are very powerful and very dedicated to this kind of use cases, because you have to run big models on your robots. The bigger the model, the more efficient your robot will be, usually, because you will have less mistakes with a very strong model.
Very interesting. And I love the discussion on exoskins and kind of, skin sensors, because I think there's about 15 meters distance of like sensing as well, wasn't there? Like, tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, for the meters, it's more the LiDAR part, and for the skin sensors, it's more around 15 centimeters currently nowadays. Can be more, can be less, depending on the company, depending on the startup, because it's emerging sector. But you have, there is a lot of vision for these sensors to reach even 30 centimeters sometimes. So this is a sixth sense that the humans do not have. If the robot is able to sense all that around it, every centimeter of skin, that could unlock things we don't yet imagine, among other things. Because for now, the robots will start by imitating humans, but when you reach perfect imitation or even surpass this, then you have a lot of more things to think about, how to improve this robot even further. And maybe I believe that there's things we don't even know as well possible. Maybe all these robots will be acrobats in some way or another.
It's the joys of imitation learning to that model of reinforcement learning, right? It's like structured environments or things that we haven't thought of yet that will be able to be brought in. So
Yeah,
really, really
absolutely.
interesting there. I actually had a LinkedIn post the other day about the hybrid match and model between imitation to reinforcement. So good
Yeah.
point. And I guess for you then, like in this kind of journey, we obviously do a lot of testing before we put those demos out there and introduce them to potential customers, right? So what are like some of the lessons or like these key lessons that like you've learned in testing robots in these types of settings that maybe you didn't think would come about, or just were really interesting to you as someone testing pre first deployment and pre-introduction to potential customers?
Yeah, so one of the big thing is that nothing ever goes as planned. But that's a thing I think every roboticist knows at some point. Because when you tested the V1 prototype in a hotel room, just for a very simple task, it was to put some paper in the trash, and you have to consider many factors you don't really think about initially, because if you don't have a specific background in hospitality yourself, or never clean the room yourself, it's a bit hard to imagine all the little details like that. So even things like the robot should be able to reach under specific like drawers or items. It should be able to do many things in different hotels that are similar but not always the same. And its strength must be able to, for example, open the door. And in hotel, that might be the thing that requires the most strength for these robots, because paradoxically, many hotel doors are very hard to open. Maybe you already went into hotels, and many people did, but when you open this door, a human don't exactly notice, or sometimes they do, but for a robot, that's a big thing. So it must have strong actuators, but not too strong, because then it's very bulky, heavy, and sometimes very noisy. So you have to achieve big balance by testing. Will it work? Will it be noisy? Will it break also? Material resistance is very important in testing. And always keep in mind nothing will ever go as planned, and that you have always backup plans, and like you have to think of safety range for everything. Like if I want my robot to lift a 12 kilogram, I will create it to lift 24 kilograms at least.
It's interesting you're saying, reach underneath things. That's exactly what I started thinking about when I kind of
Yeah.
asked this question was, can they clean under a bed? Can they clean under a drawer? And yeah, I hadn't even thought about the door thing, but I probably should because I'm only a small person. I always find hotel room doors really hard to like push into. I shove my whole body into it. And if someone's, I don't know, got a
Yeah.
do not disturb sign on the room next door, are they going to be happy hearing a robot clatter into a door or like hear whirring motors in the next door whilst it's cleaning? So no, they're
Yep.
really interesting points. And definitely, if everything worked how we thought it would first time around, roboticists would have really easy lives and no one will be screaming at a wall when they leave the office
Oh
every
yeah.
day, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. And look, like yourself, I work with a lot of early stage teams, and one thing that I always see or I always think about is how critical this pre-funding phase is. So like before any money starts coming into you and before like you get there, you're kind of like in the trenches, right? You're trying to get people excited about your vision and bought in. So let's talk about this early stage for you. I mean, how did you and your best friends, which I love the fact you work with your best friends, but how did you guys approach developing demos, not just to like catch the attention of investors per se, but really validate your concept, get them to believe in it, or even see that like super early ROI?
Yeah, that's a very timely question because we spent the summer developing like on paper how we will do the demo, what components we really have to have inside. And we came to the conclusion that, and after of course talking with a lot of VCs and investors, that these people want, and of course they want it because that's logical, the robots to demonstrate some kind of useful tasks. So it can be in simulation, it can be in physical environments, but the robot must do something. This is the big point of every VC I talked to that weren't interested right now with our situation a few months ago were saying, I will come back when you have the robot doing X task into this hotel or into a room or into a simulation to at least show the AI can handle it. Because on the hardware side, which is this can go multiple ways. We can do our own robots, which we are doing right now, but we can also buy another robot and install our AI inside and have it already run into hotels. That's an option. So we have to separate a bit AI and hardware to showcase the robot in simulation, in simulated environment of a hotel, doing cycles of cleaning. If the robot can do, for example, 100 cycles of cleaning a room without or with little mistakes, that's great. That's a good demonstration. Of course, putting it into real life will change things. You have to adapt a bit more, but that's a great demonstration.
Okay, and so I guess you said there that investors were looking for, I don't know, maybe specific tasks or asking it to do specific things. Can I
Yeah.
ask what were like the most frequented tasks that people like, if it can do this, I'm really bought in? Was there anything super specific? Like, was it bed making?
Mhm.
What was it?
Yeah. So for the hotels, because there's investors and hotels, the two are very different in terms of what they how they approach the demo. The investors don't exactly know themselves if they are not in the field which task brings the biggest ROI, but
Okay.
that's our thing to find. So the whole study we do on which task to do first is based on ROI. It's how much we can free the existing staff and how much we can compensate labor shortage and bring the most ROI with these robots. And usually it's big tasks like surface disinfection, floor cleaning, linen transportation, amenity restocking, etc. that brings the most ROI, the most important in a room cleaning, etc. And for the sheets, for example, for the bed making, it's harder, much harder. There are robots starting to fold t-shirts, etc. It's getting there,
I
but
need
not
one of
yet.
them.
Yeah, doing a whole bed with one robot or even two robots is not there yet. So not our focus. That will be quite unrealistic. So we're focusing on easy and annoying tasks mainly.
Okay, cool. Okay. Um, I guess the interesting question to follow on from that is you speak a lot about ROI, but what we need from that is something that's super reliable, right? You said it's going to do 100 rotations, or it's going to clean 100 rooms, or it's going to do something specific there. And then there's obviously that development like speed of how quickly can you build and create something that's also in turn going to really prove that it's going to outperform a human or really be well effective against the labor shortage that you've come across so far. So yeah, how do you balance like development speed with also really demonstrating the reliability of this?
So there's a lot of simulations and lab tests to do. This is the biggest part of how we validate something, of course. And if it's not safe, we don't deploy it. We don't plan to deploy anything that is not 100% safe.
Of course.
Of course, that applies for hotels with rooms with people around. We can arrange with hotels to get, for example, one floor isolated or half a floor isolated just for the robots to go around this floor and avoid humans. That can be a thing. But again, if the robot is not safe or if it's not able to do the task we want it to do in near complete autonomy, also we don't deploy. So I would say reliability would beat feature counts. If you have even one task, that's good. You can deploy it, but it has to be safe and consistent in doing this task. So that's at this point, when we have that on our screen on the simulation, then we can think about, okay, we can deploy it, maybe yes, maybe not.
Okay. Yeah, no, very true. I mean, safety over everything. I guess you don't want to be isolating a hotel floor to remove all guests off it, because then that's affecting the guest experience, which is, I guess, the opposite of what most hotels, want to do and
Exactly.
have as kind of a point. It's either luxury or it's relaxation, and being isolated off your floor for a potentially non-safe deployed robot doesn't sound like the best idea for
Yeah.
anyone, right? And well, I guess from that, guest experience, if we lead on, and efficiency of that are really important factors alongside safety and reliability. So if you were to think about scaling tech, like especially with humanoid robotics, right, it opens up some really interesting possibilities and concepts that we've discussed today. So I
Yeah.
guess I'm kind of curious, like once this tech is fully rolled out, for example, in, hopefully the first deployed hotel you work in, how do you see humanoids actually enhancing both the operational side, but also like the guest experience in hotels? Like, yeah, how do you see that enhancement happening?
Okay, so a few data for this. On the operational side, you have to know that the people that work in hotels for cleaning, housekeeping, have a limited time to clean the rooms. Often, it's due to the fact that they have to be paid at some level, and the hotels cannot pay them more than X hours a day, for example. So we are aiming to do robots that work 16 hours a day with hot swappable batteries. And with this, just this operational efficiency, if you have a robot that works at 40% human efficiency, so essentially robots almost 2 times slower than humans for everything, 16 hours a day, you would have already a 64% ROI with, because we plan to rent them, of course, monthly, which is much better for hotels because they cannot really buy things that easily.
I love a RAS model personally. Like,
Yeah.
I'm all about robots as a service and subscription.
Absolutely, yeah, RAS is the life. So this is for the operational thing. So these robots will be able to do all these tasks at pro level and 16 hours a day for 7 days a week, all year long with no breaks. This is huge. This is very huge. So you will be able, as a hotel, to have less things to worry about in terms of operation. You don't have to chase people around because the turnover is always high. They're missing people. You have to recruit all the time. This is not stressful, especially in the high season, in the summer, a lot of tourists around. So you need something reliable you can just forget. This is the big thing. And this allows for more budget to be allowed to everything else, essentially, and for the managers to rest easy also. And on the guest experience side, I would say that if you have a robot and many robots around that are always calm, polite, legible, multilingual, for tourists that's important, and that can also give you full privacy when it comes to cleaning your room and going around, answering your questions, etc., then you can probably access a higher level of service because many people do not want nowadays to bother the hotel staff, and that's humane, that's normal, uh, with room service or questions. For example, you keep that for yourself and you forget about it. But if you know that the robots are just always there, always available, and that they can provide you services at any time of the day, you can be less restrained about asking things for your comfort, personal comfort. You can ask a coffee refill, you can ask yeah, things like that for a better experience in the hotel.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I guess that's something we hadn't touched upon yet. We've spoken a lot about the cleaning services and services it provides in a physical aspect, but we hadn't actually touched on the customer service piece of it almost being, yeah, like a rep for you, right? When you go to a big hotel where you either have to call reception at whatever time of the morning it is, or physically go down to reception to request more towels or request for a coffee refill or whatever it may be. So yeah, I think that kind of, yeah, customer service representative side's a really interesting piece that, yeah, you and me hadn't probably discussed before this or before today either. So I
Yeah.
like that as an additional service that's not really going to, I guess, cost much in terms of hardware because it just needs a strong LLM in it, right? To be able to
Yeah.
translate multi-languages, probably, I don't know, 16 plus languages or something like that when you're looking at really popular locations. Okay, I really like that. It's interesting to talk about guest experience on a multifaceted sense, not just a physical cleaning for now
Yeah,
type aspect. Okay, I love that.
exactly.
Um, and I guess like finally from me, something I'm sure people would love to hear about because I know I'm excited for this. What can you share about like the future of Alsanor or like the next exciting steps that you'll be taking or that people should be like ready to watch out for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Arsenal, we are planning to create our V2 robot prototype in around early 2026. Should be ready by then. Soon we'll release a little demo, little trailer, teaser about this robot, what it will be able to do, is our plan, of course. And in the future, a bit more extended in the future, we want our robots to be everyone's friends, essentially, because we aim for very social design, and I think this is a very French thing because the other only company that seems to do that is Enchanted Tools. It's in France as well. Another company in Spain, I think, as well. Very European in a sense. And yeah, we will release designs, concepts. People will be able to comment on that, perhaps help us choose the design of the robots, and that could be nice. And of course, we will do a fundraising round, pre-seed round, of course, of 1.5 million for investors around. And this will help us greatly because we will accelerate a lot our development. But with or without that, we will release this robot in 2026.
Amazing. So what I'm hearing is everyone who is listening and watching to this should be watching out for V2 demos and publicity in 2026. Amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think where you said about being very French with the looking pretty, right? I think the other team that comes to mind when I think about that being really like socially accepted or friendly is when you think of Andromeda as well. So out
Yeah.
in Australia, like I think that's a really friendly, sociable, like, maybe like very colourful design, so more aspected for social care and interactions there, maybe than a cleaning robot where you need your weight and whatever. But yeah, definitely agree on the prettiness and aesthetic front, right? Okay.
Absolutely. Most robots have very faceless features, and you have a picture of like group picture of all the 2025 robots nowadays, and you have a whole row of them. You cannot remember any of them except for the first one that did this concept because they all look the same.
Mm.
So even for the people reminded concept, that's good. And yeah, we aim for something that people would let in their homes. That's very important. They have to trust these robots. have to be able to trust them, and we want to provide as much trust and privacy as we can, and that also goes through the design.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And I guess so, is there anything that you'd like to touch upon today that we haven't gone through yet, or I haven't, thrown at you today?
Yeah, I think I would say maybe a little perspective for hotels in the future would be that people will, of course, go into these hotels. In the beginning, they will see these robots, and this will be a novelty. So this can attract people as well. But this will also progressively go to invisible thing, because people will have nothing to complain about, always be relaxed. And this might kind of resurrect many, many verticals, many markets that were heading to an end in a sense. For example, hotels would progressively be replaced by Airbnb kind of companies. And also, as I mentioned, with less and less people available to work in these hotels, without these robots, maybe they would have disappeared. So this is good because perhaps these robots will not just resurrect some markets, but also create other markets that were not even imaginable before, because now we have this workforce that adds to the human workforce of a very aging population that can do all the work for you, good part of it, of course. And then you can think about many use cases. You can put this robot to use in many things.
Amazing. And I hadn't even thought about the Airbnb piece. Like, going to be staying at one in Australia in a few weeks, and
Oh, yeah.
you always see people add on the cleaning charges, and that is an
Yep,
individual who's probably home it is, and they're either paying for a third party cleaner or they're going in themselves and doing that. And if we're talking about a subscription model to, subscribe to one for a year, if you know you're renting out that property for a year, and just to have it on site is super easy for you. It saves you traveling and adding those extra costs of paying people and changing that rate you're charging as well so frequently if you're paying
absolutely.
a set subscription model. So that's something I hadn't thought about. So really interesting point there. Okay,
Great.
awesome. Um, well, look, I mean, I guess from me, Mino, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It's been
Pleasure.
amazing to have you as a guest. I've really appreciated it. And I personally can't wait to see what's in store for Alsanor next.
Yes, same. And I can't wait to hear about the other podcast you run. This was
Well,
amazing too.
thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Danielle.